He didn't want to be with her, until a secret moment awakened desire. The assignment. Elon Merritt stared at the holographic assignment brief floating above his desk with disbelief. Vayreen? The Ceridian orbital? He ran his fingers through his dark, unkempt hair. Director, there must be some mistake. Director Sani's image flickered slightly. No mistake, Merritt. The Ceridians specifically requested our atmospheric systems expertise. Their habitat is experiencing abnormal pressure fluctuations, 6 months in and out. But they're notorious isolationists. They barely allow trade delegations, let alone long-term visitors, which is precisely why this is so important. Their chief environmental scientist, Dr. Nylara Vess, has taken considerable political risk extending this invitation. Don't make me regret recommending you. Elon sighed, knowing argument was futile. As Earth's leading atmospheric systems specialist, his expertise was unique. When do I leave? Transport departs in 36 hours. Briefing materials are being uploaded to your neural interface. Learn everything you can about Ceridian physiology and cultural taboos. 3 days later, Elon's transport pod docked with the massive Ceridian orbital habitat. Vayreen looked nothing like the sterile research stations humans constructed in space. Its exterior resembled an enormous flowering plant, with crystalline petals unfurled to catch the light of the binary star system. The airlock cycled open, revealing his welcoming committee. 2 Ceridian guards and a slender figure who could only be Dr. Nylara Vess. Unlike the guards with their ceremonial armor, she wore a simple iridescent garment that seemed to change color with her movements. Her skin was pale blue with faint bioluminescent patterns shifting beneath the surface. Her features were almost human, with subtle differences, slightly larger eyes, no external ears, and a crown of delicate sensory appendages where hair would be on a human. Specialist Merritt, she said, her voice carrying an unusual harmonic quality. Welcome to Vayreen. I trust your journey was comfortable? As comfortable as interstellar travel gets, Elon replied, fighting his nervousness. He had studied Ceridian customs extensively during the journey, but theory and practice were vastly different. Thank you for the invitation, Dr. Vess. I'm eager to begin our work together. You may call me Nylara. Formalities will only impede our progress. Her eyes, deep violet with no discernible pupil, studied him with scientific curiosity. The atmospheric anomalies have worsened. We should proceed directly to the Environmental Control Center. As they walked through the habitat's main corridor, Elon was struck by the integration of technology and biology. The walls seemed alive, pulsing gently with bioluminescence that responded to their presence. Our life support systems are unlike yours, Nylara explained, noticing his fascination. We grow rather than construct our environments. The atmospheric processors are semi-sentient organisms that we've cultivated over generations. That might explain why your engineers haven't identified the problem, Elon mused. You're looking at biology while I'd approach this as mechanics. A faint smile crossed Nylara's face. Precisely why you're here, Specialist Merritt. Sometimes the solution requires fresh perspective. They reached a vast chamber where enormous translucent structures pulsed rhythmically, processing the habitat's air. 6 months, Elon thought, watching Nylara move gracefully among the living machinery. 6 months in this alien world with this enigmatic woman as my only real connection. Little did he know how those 6 months would change everything. Foreign Starzalon's first 3 weeks on Vayreen were a study in frustration. The atmospheric systems, if he could even call them that, defied conventional engineering logic. Where humans used predictable machines, the Ceridians relied on biological systems with moods and rhythms all their own. You're approaching this incorrectly, Nylara said one evening as they reviewed data in the environmental lab. The room's bioluminescent walls pulsed a soft amber, reflecting her growing irritation. The respiratory membranes aren't malfunctioning. They're responding to something. Elon pushed away from the console, stretching his tired back. On Earth, when something breaks, we fix or replace it. Your systems aren't broken, they're communicating? Yes, she said, her violet eyes widening slightly. That's exactly it. The question isn't what's malfunctioning, but what message they're conveying. Their daily collaboration slowly evolved into a delicate dance of ideas. Elon learned to listen to the habitat as Nylara did, not as machinery, but as a living entity. In turn, she began to appreciate the systematic precision he brought to their work. One evening, after a particularly productive session analyzing atmospheric composition, Ilan found himself alone in his quarters, overwhelmed by a wave of homesickness. The room, though comfortable by Ceridian standards, felt alien. The lighting too blue, the gravity slightly off. Even the recycled air carried unfamiliar notes. He activated his personal entertainment module, letting the familiar strains of classical earth music fill the space. Rachmaninoff's piano. Concerto No. 2 had always been his refuge during difficult projects. Ilan closed his eyes, letting the music wash over him. What is that sound? He startled, eyes flying open to find Nylara standing in his doorway. He hadn't heard her enter. Ceridians moved with unnerving silence. I apologize for the intrusion, she said, her sensory crown rippling with what he'd learned to recognize as curiosity. But I've never heard such patterns before. It's music. Earth music, Ilan explained, reaching to turn it off. No, she said quickly. Please continue it. Cautiously, he increased the volume. Nylara stepped fully into his quarters, her bioluminescent patterns brightening with interest. She stood motionless, absorbing the symphony with her entire body. It's mathematical yet emotional, she finally said. Our sonic arts are entirely different. Would you show me sometime? Ilan asked, surprising himself with the request. Something shifted in her expression, a momentary vulnerability quickly masked. Perhaps, though Ceridian sonic arts are considered quite personal. The following days brought a subtle shift in their interaction. Nylara began explaining her culture more openly, the complex hierarchy of Ceridian society, their reverence for biological harmony, their distrust of mechanical solutions. Ilan shared stories of Earth, its diverse ecosystems and cultures, its troubled environmental history. Your species nearly destroyed your world, yet managed to save it, she remarked one day as they calibrated sensors. Mine would consider such brinkmanship unforgivably reckless. We're good at last-minute solutions, Ilan admitted, though I prefer your approach of prevention. Their professional breakthrough came unexpectedly. While reviewing atmospheric circulation patterns, Ilan noticed a subtle cyclical anomaly. There's a harmonic disturbance here, like feedback in a sound system. Nylara's patterns brightened with excitement. The habitat is resonating incorrectly. That's why the membranes are struggling. They worked late into the night, Ilan mapping frequency patterns while Nylara translated them into biological responses. When the solution finally emerged, a simple adjustment to the habitat's rotation speed, their shared elation crossed all species barriers. We did it, Ilan laughed, forgetting himself enough to grasp her hand. The moment their skin touched, an electric current seemed to pass between them. Nylara's bioluminescent patterns rippled in a cascade of colors Ilan had never seen before. She didn't pull away immediately, her violet eyes studying his face with new interest. You should rest, she finally said, gently withdrawing her hand. Tomorrow we implement our solution. As she left, Ilan realized something fundamental had changed. They were no longer just colleagues from different worlds. They had become something undefined yet undeniably significant. The symphony. The atmospheric correction was a triumph. Varine's living systems responded immediately to their adjustments, settling into a new harmony that had the entire habitat functioning better than before. Ilan found himself celebrated among the normally reserved Ceridians, a foreign specialist who had succeeded where their own experts had faltered. The council wishes to formally acknowledge your contribution, Nylara informed him one morning. It's a rare honor for an outsider. I couldn't have done it without you, Ilan replied honestly. It was our collaboration that made the difference. Something in his tone made her patterns flutter briefly. Yes, well, the ceremony is in 3 days. You'll need appropriate attire. I've taken the liberty of arranging it. With the primary crisis resolved, their work shifted to optimizing systems and documenting their methods. Ilan found himself with unexpected free time and took to exploring the less restricted areas of the habitat. The botanical sections were particularly fascinating, earth plants cultivated alongside Ceridian flora, creating hybrids unlike anything he'd seen before. It was during one such exploration that he became disoriented. The habitat's organic architecture meant few straight corridors or clear signage. Following what he thought was a path back to the central hub, Ilan instead found himself in an unfamiliar chamber. Unlike the public spaces with their functional design, This room was clearly private. The ceiling opened to the stars, protected by a transparent membrane. The floor held shallow pools of luminescent liquid, while the walls were lined with strange crystalline formations. Before he could retreat, a haunting sound filled the air, like singing but with harmonics no human voice could produce. Elan followed the sound to a small alcove, then froze in astonishment. Nilara stood in the center of a pool, her work garments replaced by a simple shift that left her arms and shoulders bare. Her eyes were closed in concentration as she moved her hands through the luminescent liquid, creating patterns that rose into the air like living light. As her fingers danced, the crystalline formations around the room resonated in perfect harmony, with her movements creating music that seemed to vibrate through Elan's very bones. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever witnessed, intimate, vulnerable, and clearly not meant for outside eyes. He knew he should leave, but found himself rooted to the spot, transfixed. The symphony built to a crescendo, the light patterns swirling faster as the harmonics grew more complex. Then at its peak, Nilara opened her eyes and saw him. The music stopped abruptly. The light patterns collapsed back into the pools. For a moment, they stared at each other in silence. "I'm so sorry," Elan began, mortified. "I got lost and—" "You should not be here," she interrupted, her voice uncharacteristically emotional. "This is private. I'll leave immediately," he said, turning away. "Wait." Her command stopped him. "How much did you see?" "Enough to know I witnessed something extraordinary," he answered honestly. "Something sacred." She emerged from the pool, the luminescent liquid sliding off her blue skin like mercury. "What you saw is called Tessera, the symphony of self. It is how we process emotions that cannot be shared." Elan swallowed. "I truly didn't mean to intrude on something so personal. And yet you did." She approached him slowly, her patterns shifting through colors he couldn't interpret. "No outsider has ever witnessed a Caridian Tessera. I won't speak of it to anyone," he promised. She studied him with those violet eyes. "The emotions I was processing, they concerned you." The admission hung between them, altering the atmosphere, as surely as their habitat adjustments had changed Veyrin's environment. "I don't understand what that means," Elan said carefully. Nilara reached out hesitantly, her fingers stopping just short of touching his face. "It means I am experiencing incompatible resonance, feelings that conflict with my position, my people's expectations." Elan's heart raced as he realized what she was trying to say. Slowly, giving her time to withdraw, he closed the distance between them and gently took her hand. "I think I'm experiencing some incompatible resonance too," he whispered. Her patterns rippled in response, illuminating the chamber around them with pulsing light that somehow matched the rhythm of his heartbeat. "Oh!" Whispered confessions. The days following Elan's accidental intrusion into Nilara's sanctuary were filled with a delicate tension. In public, during council meetings or laboratory sessions, they maintained their professional dynamic, yet something fundamental had shifted between them. Their fingers would brush when exchanging data tablets, lingering a moment too long. Their eyes would meet across crowded rooms, conveying unspoken understanding. 3 weeks after the Tessera incident, a severe stellar storm forced the evacuation of Veyrin's outer research pods. The habitat's emergency protocols functioned perfectly, thanks to their recent adjustments. But the chaos left them working late into the night cycle, ensuring all systems remained stable. "The last diagnostic cycle is complete," Elan said, closing his console. "Everything's holding steady." Nilara nodded, her luminescent patterns dimmed with exhaustion. "You should rest. Humans require more sleep than Ceridians." "And you?" he asked, noticing the unusual dullness of her normally vibrant skin. "I'll monitor for another cycle," she replied, though her posture betrayed her fatigue. Elan made a decision. "Have you eaten?" "I haven't. Maybe we could continue this discussion somewhere more comfortable." The invitation hung between them, innocent on the surface, yet laden with possibility. "My private quarters have atmospheric settings that might be more pleasant for you," she finally offered, "and I could introduce you to proper Ceridian cuisine." Her quarters were smaller than he'd expected for someone of her status, but exquisitely personalized. Living plants grew from recessed alcoves, their blossoms emitting subtle fragrances. One wall displayed what appeared to be family heirlooms, crystalline structures similar to those in her sanctuary. "These belong to my ancestors," she explained, following his gaze. "Each generation adds their own resonance pattern." The meal she prepared was unlike anything in the habitat's communal dining hall. Delicate proteins cultivated in her personal bioreactor, vegetables with complex layered flavors. They ate from bowls that seemed alive, warming or cooling the food to perfect temperature. "This is incredible," Elan admitted between bites. "Why isn't this served in the main hall?" "Because true Ceridian cuisine is considered too intimate for casual consumption," she explained, her patterns shifting to a warm amber. "Food preparation is traditionally shared only with family or very close companions." The implication wasn't lost on Elan. They were crossing boundaries, cultural, professional, perhaps even biological. "Nylara," he began carefully, "I need to understand what's happening between us. On Earth, I'd have some context, but here..." She set down her utensils, her violet eyes meeting his directly. "What's happening is unprecedented and problematic. Ceridians do not typically form emotional attachments to non-Ceridians." "Typically?" "There are no records of such pairings." Her patterns rippled with what he now recognized as nervousness. "My position as chief environmental scientist already makes me somewhat unconventional by my people's standards. This would be seen as further evidence of my unsuitability." "Unsuitability?" Elan echoed, confused. Nylara's patterns darkened. "My research approach has always been considered too experimental, too willing to incorporate outside influences. It's why I was permitted to request Earth's assistance. The Council considered it consistent with my eccentricity." "They don't know how brilliant you are," Elan said, reaching across the table to touch her hand. When their fingers met, her bioluminescence pulsed in sync with his heartbeat, just as it had in the sanctuary. The sensation was extraordinary, as if his very life rhythm was being reflected back to him through her. "This response," she whispered, staring at their joined hands, "is not supposed to happen with non-Ceridians. Our bioluminescent patterns are evolutionary adaptations for communication with compatible partners." "Yet here we are," Elan said softly. "Here we are," she agreed, her free hand cautiously reaching to touch his face. "Your assignment ends in 7 weeks. You'll return to Earth." The reminder was like cold water. "I don't have to leave," he said impulsively. "I could request an extension or..." "No outsider has ever been granted permanent residence on Vayreen," she interrupted gently. "And you would miss your world eventually." "And you? Could you leave here?" Her patterns dimmed at the question. "Ceridians are biologically tethered to our habitats. My body's rhythms are synchronized with Vayreen's systems. To leave permanently would what?" He pressed when she hesitated. "It would diminish me," she admitted, slowly but inevitably. "I would lose aspects of myself that define who I am." Elan felt the weight of impossible choices settling between them. "So we have 7 weeks." Instead of answering with words, Nylara leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his in the Ceridian gesture of deepest intimacy. Her luminescent patterns enveloped them both, creating a private universe of light and sensation. 7 weeks, she whispered against his skin, to create memories that will sustain us after. Their first kiss was hesitant, exploratory. The meeting of beings evolved on different worlds. Her skin was cooler than human temperature, her lips softer. When they touched, her bioluminescence intensified, casting patterns across their bodies that seemed to map every point of contact between them. That night, they discovered that despite their different origins, their bodies found their own harmony. Where humans expressed passion with heat and urgency, Ceridians communicated through light and resonance. Together they created something entirely new, a symphony of touch and light that transcended their separate biologies. Later, as they lay entwined in the dim light of her quarters, Elan traced the luminescent patterns that still pulsed across her blue skin. "What will happen when I leave?" he asked, voicing the fear that had lodged in his heart. Nylara was silent for a long moment. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "This is uncharted territory, even for a scientist." Resonance. The final weeks of Elan's assignment passed with bittersweet intensity. By day, they completed their work, documenting their atmospheric solutions and training Nylara's team to maintain the new protocols. By night, they explored their impossible connection, creating memories to sustain them through the separation to come. They kept their relationship private, though Elan suspected some of the more perceptive Caridians noticed the harmonic changes in Nylara's bioluminescent patterns when he was near. If there were whispers, no one confronted them directly. 10 days before his scheduled departure, everything changed. Elan was summoned to an unexpected council session, arriving to find Nylara already there, her patterns pulsing with distress. "Specialist Merit," began Elder Thorin, the council's most conservative member. "It has come to our attention that you and Dr. Vess have developed an inappropriate personal relationship." The accusation hung in the chamber. Elan glanced at Nylara, whose posture had gone rigid. "With respect, Elder," Elan replied carefully. "My personal connections on Vayreen are my own concern. Not when they involve one of our most valuable scientists," another council member interjected. "Not when they threaten the purity of our biological heritage." Nylara finally spoke, her voice steady despite her turbulent patterns. "My personal choices do not impact my work. As you've seen, my collaboration with Specialist Merit saved our habitat from potential catastrophe." "Your work is not in question," Elder Thorin said. "Your judgment is. The Council has decided to accelerate Specialist Merit's departure. A transport will be ready tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Elan echoed, shock giving way to anger. "My work here isn't complete." "Your contractual obligations have been fulfilled," the Elder interrupted. "Your continued presence is disruptive." Nylara's patterns flashed with rare public emotion. "This is unprecedented interference in personal matters. I formally object." "Objection noted," Thoran replied coolly. "Decision stands." They were given no opportunity to argue further. As they left the council chamber, Elan fought the urge to reach for Nylara's hand, knowing it would only make things worse. "My quarters," she whispered. 1 hour. The next 60 minutes were the longest of Elan's life. He mechanically packed his belongings, mind racing through options that all seemed impossible. When he arrived at her quarters, he found Nylara surrounded by crystals similar to those in her sanctuary, her patterns shifting rapidly as she worked. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Creating a solution," she replied without looking up. "Or at least, a possibility." She held up a crystal that pulsed with light in the exact rhythm of his heartbeat. "This is attuned to your biological signature. And this," she indicated another crystal that glowed with her distinctive patterns, "contains mine." "I don't understand." "Caridian communication technology is biological, not mechanical," she explained. "These crystals, properly cultivated, can maintain resonance across vast distances. They're typically used to connect habitat sections during repairs, but theoretically, they could connect us across interstellar space. Not like conventional communication," she cautioned. "Not words or images, but emotional resonance, yes. A connection that neither time nor distance can sever." Elan took the crystal she offered, feeling it warm to his touch, its glow intensifying. "Will the Council allow this?" "They cannot prohibit what they don't understand," Nylara said, a hint of defiance in her voice. "And this application is innovative." "You're breaking rules for me," he realized. "I'm evolving beyond limitations," she corrected, her patterns forming the complex symphony he'd first witnessed in her sanctuary. "Perhaps that's what we've been doing all along." Their final night together was spent in her sanctuary, where Nylara taught him the rudiments of Tessera, not just as observer, but as participant. His human hands couldn't manipulate the luminescent pools as she could, but when they touched the liquid together, their shared resonance created patterns more complex than either could produce alone. "This connection transcends biology," she whispered as their synchronized patterns illuminated the chamber. "It will remain even when we're worlds apart." The next morning, Elan boarded the transport with the crystal carefully secured against his chest. As the ship disengaged from Vayreen, he felt a momentary panic, a severance he wasn't prepared for. Then the crystal warmed against his skin, pulsing with familiar patterns. He closed his eyes, concentrating as Nylara had taught him, and felt rather than saw her response, a symphony of emotion that transcended language. 3 months later, back in his apartment on Earth, Ilan received an official communication from Vayreen. The Council had approved a first-of-its-kind scientific exchange program, allowing select specialists extended residence for collaborative research. Dr. Nylara Vess would be arriving as Vayreen's representative to oversee the program's implementation. The message contained a personal addendum. Some resonances are too valuable to sacrifice. Some connections defy conventional understanding. Sometimes evolution requires us to create new harmonies. That night, Ilan held his crystal to the window, facing the distant stars where Vayreen orbited. Its glow intensified, pulsing with the unmistakable rhythm of Nylara's heart, a beacon guiding her home to him. Proof that sometimes love's resonance transcends even the void between worlds.